welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, or you may not know about Doctor Who. This time we're going to have a look at The Enemy of the World. I hope you enjoy. For over 40 years, only episode 3 of The Enemy of the World was known to exist in the BBC's film and TV archives, having been saved from being wiped and junked. However, on the 11th of October 2013, it was announced by the BBC that the other 5 episodes had been found and were back in their hands again. This was the last story to be produced under the aegis of Doctor Who creator Sidney Newman, who left his position as head of drama at the BBC upon expiration of his contract at the end of 1967. It was planned that Troughton's 2 characters would meet more than once, but due to the technical complexity, there was eventually only one confrontation scene at the story's climax. Salamander's first name, Ramon, was never specified on screen. Instead, it was featured in David Whittaker's outline for his novelisation of his story, which was left unfinished at the time of his death. Patrick Troughton's son, David, appears as an uncredited guard in episodes 5 and 6. Neither Fraser Hines nor Deborah Watling appeared in episode 4 as they were both on holiday during the week it was recorded. Fraser Hines' cousin Ian plays a guard. This is the final story overseen by producer Innes Lloyd. Stock footage of a volcano exploring was later reused in colour for the title cards of Inferno and again in the Time Monster. Similarly, the footage of an exploding helicopter sourced from Russia with Love would again be used from the Daemons. For the week of transmission of episode 5, Doctor Who featured in full colour for the first time on the front cover of Radio Times. Episode 4 is the only episode of the story for which no telesnapped record exists, and it remains unknown to this day as to why this episode is not covered. There is a possibility that John Cura was either ill or on holiday at the time of broadcast. Images of Patrick Troughton as Salamander has often been used to illustrate the Second Doctor in books and magazines, even though technically the images are not that of the Doctor. Although the fact that the Doctor impersonates Salamander complicates matters. These images are easy to spot due to the fact that Salamander, or the Doctor as Salamander, wears his hair parted and has a ruddier complexion than the Doctor. Both this story and the previous adventure, The Ice Warriors, have a premise where food shortage is caused by overpopulation. In this case, Salamander is exploiting the need for farms to produce multiple crops in a season to amass power. Mary Peach appeared in the story because her kids wouldn't believe she was a real actress until she had been on Doctor Who. The chase scene in episode 1 originally took place in a crowded holiday resort. This was changed due to the logistical difficulties. This is the first story since The Tomb of the Cybermen not to be set in a cold climate. Colin Douglas hated working on the serial, regarding the series as a low-grade children's fare and well beneath his dignity. He remarked at the time that it was the worst thing he had ever done, and he didn't want to be asked to appear on the show again. Despite this, he returns to the show 10 years later, playing Reuben in Horror of Fang Rock. While Patrick Troughton relished the opportunity to play a different character in the series, he was disappointed that the plot required Salamander to be visually similar to the Doctor rather than allowing him to be substantially modified in his regular appearance. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed. The Enemy of the World is a very interesting story because obviously it's only very recently that everyone has been able to really see this serial because it's been lost for so long. And it's quite interesting hearing a lot of the thoughts and opinions on this particular serial because a lot of people, when they listened to the audio of it, they found it very boring or very uninteresting. And of course, as soon as they got the visuals to accompany it, it actually managed to change the story's perception quite a bit. It's now regarded as a very popular story, a very good story. The Enemy of the World, in my opinion, is an okay story, all things considered. I do quite like it. I do like the idea of the Doctor having to, play a disguise as this dictator, Salamander, and of course the fact that they look exactly the same is an interesting twist. I've always liked the idea that despite all these regenerations, the Doctor will eventually end up meeting someone who's basically the exact same as him. It's a very interesting concept, and I think this story does it quite well to an extent. That said, this is one of those serials which go on for way too long. This is a serial that doesn't need to be 6 parts. There are several parts which don't feel like they go anywhere. It just feels like they're just standing in a room for the most part and not really doing anything. I will say this though, the ending, the final serial part 6, I love that ending. I love the fact that you think it's the Doctor walking in, stumbling into the TARDIS, and yet you sort of have this inkling that there's something mysterious about this guy. He's obviously Salamander. He's fiddling around, he's not making any comments, and then the Doctor appears and you have this mini fight. He does technically kill Salamander by throwing him out the TARDIS, but it's a Yeah, I do quite like that little clash at the end. I love that scene so much. I think this serial as a whole, though, it goes on for a little bit too long than it needs to be. It could be cut down by 1 or 2 parts. That said, I do think it is a very interesting concept, and I think it does a very good job at exploiting that interesting concept. That said, it doesn't really have much of a conclusion with what happens with the people in the tunnels. It just kind of ends in a way. I do quite like the ending, obviously. It's an okay story overall. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I'll see you next time.